the victim actually some sort of aggressor, a minor prostitute? You mean he raped a girl?
Exactly. It's her fault. It's her fault.
It's her fault, a state charge. I said, and that's all he got. How many victims after 2007? Forget that. Let's go back to Maria Farmer, 1996. Let me read it to our audience. We'll put it up on the split screen. This document that's now part of the Epstein
Yeah.
production, front and back, in the
And after
handwriting.
she filed that, he threatened her.
Right. And
It was
that's
a serious thing back then.
that absolutely.
That's what made her go, wait a second. I just thought maybe it was just a little, child pornography and you stole our pictures and you stole them. But, the fact that he sold those pictures to buyers. And then he threatened her after that. So she knew and has been fighting since because she was aware, well, this is a lot bigger than we thought.
This is what the actual document says. Uh, it says Jeffrey Epstein, character of case, child pornography. Under the facts of the complaint, it says complainant stated, there's a typo there, it says stage, meaning it's stated, that she is a professional artist and took pictures of her sisters, 12 and 16 years, for her own personal artwork. Epstein stole the photos. You just said she worked for him, stole the photos and negatives, and is believed to have sold the pictures to potential buyers. Epstein at one time requested. Now, the reason we know this is Maria Farmer is not her name was redacted, but Maria Farmer and her lawyer have identified it. They've outed themselves as being Maria Farmer is the complainant. So at one time, Epstein requested Maria Farmer to take pictures of young girls at swimming pools. Epstein is now threatening Maria that if she tells anyone about the photos, he will burn her house down. And this is clocked in on September the 3rd with a date stamp, 1996. It's given a sequence number, a serial number. On the back of the document, it says it was originated at the Miami office on 2nd Avenue in North Miami Beach, but was transmitted to New York City, attention 5A, whatever that means, in somebody's name. And now, as we came on the air, he told me about Lisa about a letter that just went out today from Robert Garcia, the ranking Democratic member of the House Oversight Committee. The Department of Justice's acting inspector general. Why don't you tell our audience what Representative Garcia is seeking in this new letter?
Well, you're seeing that there are people that are standing up for us, and there are people that are saying, wait a second, what's going on here? They're releasing, DOJ is releasing these pictures and things, and they're thinking they're being clever by not releasing too much. But if you connect the dots of what was going on and released back then, that's like Garcia saying, wait a second, none of this is adding up. This was reported back then. We need answers of why you didn't follow up on it.
Yeah, and there is actually what I refer to as there's a controlled set of files that's in the hands of the Oversight Committee, obtained directly from the Epstein estate and other subpoenas. That so there, when we talk about the Epstein files, right, that covers a lot of different territory. Epstein files that most of us talk about is what's in the hands of the executive branch, its Department of Justice, and all agencies of the executive branch that through their own investigations, the Maxwell investigation, the Epstein investigation, and other things. But separately from that, there are documents in the hands of the courts, there's documents in the hands
Just go like
of
this.
the
Look.
Epstein estate that will release tens of thousands of emails and photographs. I call that the
Hey,
control set.
Wenny.
Because if they don't release it
Wenny.
directly from
Hi, Wenny.
the executive
Hi,
branch,
Wenny.
the Democrats are going to start releasing this email was sent. Where's the Donald Trump side of it? Look, multi-layer onion. Absolutely. Tell our audience what's in the works sort of moving forward now that you've seen with your own eyes some of these new productions, but understanding that it's not complete. What's on the horizon?
Well, the survivors are talking a lot about the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. So, he has noticed in one of the files that they tried to follow up on these 10 co-conspirators. And in his write-up, there was somewhere in the files that each one of these co-conspirators had pictures that were probably the ones that were blacked out. So that's what we're assuming. Finding that file, blacking out these pictures, they don't want They did years ago, for some reason, they interviewed, I think it was like 80, was it? And there was a lot of survivors of the younger girls out in Florida. They interviewed so many of these young girls, and they all had names, and that's how they compiled these co-conspirators.
Yeah.
But then it just fell to the wayside. What happened? And then they leaked it in the files. I don't know if they meant to or not. But once they did that, it's like, wait a second, well, who are these people? Why don't we know who they are? Why are they being protected?
Yeah, because it's not transparent. And what are the survivors? You may not be able to pronounce it to our audience right this minute, but what are the survivors doing behind the backdrop with you and others in leadership to kind of compare notes and start? You know, we always said, and I think you said it at one of your press conferences, if they're not going to release the client list, we can put our notes together, our heads together, and come up with a pretty good one. But we're going to sit back and let the government do the right thing, knowing that we are here on the sidelines to make them honest. Are there things in the works related to that?
Well, I spoke out and said that, you know, if you're not going to do your job, we'll do it. It wasn't specifically, oh, the files, they're not going to release the files. We knew they would release some files. We were willing to let them do their job. But on the background, I was doing my own job with other survivors. And as I spoke out, there were many survivors that came forward. And together, we were just comparing notes, you know, working with people in progress. We can't identify which house and who they are. We'll have an announcement probably coming up in January about our findings. But as it relates to what I said in September, you know, the survivor community is strong. And as we connect the dots together, we started realizing, wait a second, you know, some of us were stuck the same guy in Hollywood for movie audition. Some of us went to the same modeling agency.
Yeah, well,
And then we realized there was two institutions that Epstein was sending, you know, girls to. Can't really say too much, but it was also a revelation. It revealed something about my past, which I thought was just unique to myself. But as I started talking to other survivors, when, you know, there's 1,200 of us. So the DOJ, when they went through the files, realized there's 1,200 of us. We don't think when we get together that we're going to have some overlaps, some similarities going on, and then we could take those and connect the dots ourselves.
Yeah.
And if the DOJ isn't going to release it, we can, you know, conduct our own research and bring that to their attention, to the right people who will support us. That's what we've been doing on the sidelines.
And to those in our audience that wonder, there are states that have extended the time to file adult survivor, sexual abuse survivor lawsuits, civil lawsuits. New York extended their window a couple of times. California has worked on it. In fact, Senator Joe Dunn, former Senator Joe Dunn, is a close friend of yours and mine, and we're working together on things together. He's working with his group that you're affiliated with, Survivor Strategies, to try to get these adult survivor statute of limitation windows open to allow people now to file about things civilly that happened to them when they were teenagers or 5 years ago, 10 years ago. For those that are wondering, you know, how to put the pieces together, it's Eugene Carroll, who's now pushing 80, was able to bring a case about something that happened to her in the 90s when Donald Trump sexually abused her, or worse, in a dressing room in a department store in New York, because New York had opened the window, started by Cuomo of all people, and continued by Captain Hochul, the governor. And this is this is important work, right?
Oh, very important work.
Right.
Yeah, I was part of that team that got that bill passed by Newsom. It opens January 1st. It's the California adult window. Super important. And like you, Senator Joe Dunn and his mentor, Mama, they care so much about survivors and got it passed. And this adult window is huge. You can go back, like you said, 5 years, 50 years, and go after your abuser. You know, and a lot of times these women are just, they've been wanting to do this for years, and they haven't been able to go after the person, you know, that abused them. And they hold on to that trauma for, I mean, I know victims that hold on to that trauma for 20 20, 30, 40 years. It
Oh
doesn't go
yeah.
away. So this
And
is a big deal. This is a big deal.
and the window we're talking about would be,
Hey, can you?
it would basically lift the statute of limitations and give, right, it would allow in the next, for 2 years for people to file the case, but a look back is unlimited, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah. So if it happened in 1980, you got 2 years from January 1 to get your case filed, right?
Yeah, I had a woman, Victoria Valentino, on my podcast, and she was abused by Cosby, I think back in the 70s,
Right.
and she's been waiting for this moment.
Absolutely. And so that's another, that's the other element of getting redress and dignity and, getting justice for the survivors is being able to go into the courtroom and now knowing that not only are you supported as a survivor network, having been linked together, and the more bashing and victimizing that Donald Trump and those around him have done, the stronger that you've become. I mean, right, it's backfired in that way. The more he's tried to attack you, right, yeah, right. You're all unified. But in addition, how does it feel to have there's now, a national momentum in your favor, even in a way that hashtag Me Too didn't generate it. And knowing that, not just the legal AF or my defense community, but there's so many people that are so supportive of you and want to get the healing done, no matter whether that's a civil lawsuit or the Epstein or Stanley
Help me get
Gabrielle or
through
whatever
the.
it's going to be. How does that make you feel? Is that important to your movement?
Oh, it's everything to own your story, move through your trauma, move through healing, and just be able to come on the other side and say, you know what? I'm just gonna put that shame aside. I don't own that
Can you
shame. I'm gonna
pop
move
me a
on.
20? Question mark. I hate to ask, but I'm going to end up dry on Sunday for the Steelers game. Period.
Together in one room.
No, and at least two out of the three major Republican women decided to, if you Sinema, Nancy Mace, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, 2 out of 3 are not going to be in Congress. I mean, Nancy Mace looks like she's going to drop out to run for governor of South Carolina, and Marjorie Taylor Greene, there's
I
nothing
really
about Marjorie
appreciate
Taylor
it.
Greene
I don't
other than
get
her
paid
support
until
for
Tuesday, the
her
29th.
dad as a great, she's a great, honorable woman. She's a great personal and professional and political sacrifice. She sided with you folks and then self-immolated Donald Trump and got checked the door.
Yeah. I mean, anyone who stands up for survivors is a hero to me. They're survival trust. And I know you don't agree with that, but just the fact that you stand up for innocent children. I mean, a lot of these, I was in my early 20s, like hundreds of others, but there was hundreds also that were, 14 years old, Michael. I mean, you're a father, like,
Yeah.
14 year old's a child. I have a 14-year-old. They're little kids. Like, you have to, this is humanity. This goes beyond, you know, um, just doing advocacy work. We need to make change here.
That's why it galls me when I hear them as an excuse to deport people and take and disappear people from the streets. They always use the same mantra. Oh, if you're against our immigration and removal policies, then you're for child sex predators and rapists. I'm like, you're talking about the president who was a judge to be a sex offender,
Steelers have
who
emerged
covered
as
up
a
for
real
Epstein,
playoff
the
contender.
death penalty delayed enforcement and Epstein, and it's only been Nancy. That's the administration who support your immigration policy?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also with the Me Too thing,
I
it was
think the
so
Super
comforting.
Bowl's a possibility because none of the teams are really that good this year. There's no reason the Steelers couldn't win the Super Bowl this year. but it's hard to steady the expectations. You have to remember this is still an offense rebuilding. It's all second year offensive linemen. It's hard to steady expectations, but lots of people feel the potential is there this season. And it's pretty late in the season to be thinking this team could win the Super Bowl.
You know, they're so big and so powerful that you can just grab a woman and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
That
especially
would not to stop.
absolutely. And I hope you'll be, along with us, be at the forefront of making it stop. This letter, I don't know if you got a chance to see it because it just came out. Now listen, I'm not here to validate it. I don't know if it's authentic or not. All I can tell you is it's in the FBI files.
I
It's in the
really want
executive
Rodgers
memo.
and Tomlin to go out on top. Check out my Sunny Hippies YouTube channel. I've been posting Jeffrey Epstein stuff every day. I've downloaded the files and went through them myself. Not surprising to see Woody Allen, Michael Jackson, and Mick Jagger. Could Mick Jagger slept with three underage women that we know about already from the 70s?
Let me just read. If this
I
info
post on YouTube a lot of my Madden games. I should start naming the.
good luck. We shared one thing. Sharing, but I might not be able to get this out. Our love of sharing, would you please
It's a fake letter to them.
also shares our love you buy girls. When a young beauty walked by, he loved to quote grab a snatch wherever and he did snatching grab in the best homes in the system. He's not a deep point, but you just referenced his active Hollywood case where he said he was able to grab a woman by her keyword, which sound a lot like grabbing snatch here. Life is unfair. Yours, J. Epstein. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's in the pile.
Well, let's say it's fake. So what would be the point of that?
Right? Who would print that in order to do what 20 years ago?
Well, let's say it's
Figure,
real. What would be
yeah.
the reason why? Jeffrey had said in his emails that he wanted to, nobody would vote for Trump if they knew what he was up to. He wrote that in an email. So I would think that when if he's planning to kill himself or he's planning to know he's going to be murdered, more likely, in my opinion, he would write something that would give you the idea that Trump was also deeply involved, sick man.
Well, it would be you're exactly right. It's consistent with an email that we all saw.
That was consistent to me.
Yeah, he wrote it. We saw the email that came out of the Epstein estate between Maxwell and Epstein, where Epstein said to Maxwell, "And what about the time that Trump spent in my home for hours with blank, an underage girl, whether that was Virginia or not?" And Maxwell said, "Yeah, I was just thinking that." What was he doing for hours with an underage girl?
Yeah, but the reason why they were talking about it was because they were trying to say that if the public knew about what kind of person he was, the stuff that we see, then he would never be elected. And almost like he wanted people to know. It was almost because at that time in their lives, they were friends. They were when they were doing the dirty deeds
Right.
together, they were good friends. But towards the end, they weren't friends. And you
Right.
could tell he wanted to hang Trump on something.
Yeah,
So that's why it would make sense maybe in the jail that he's like writing this thing. I just want to get it out there without spelling it out,
right.
you know,
Dead man
about Trump.
confession, one way or the other.
Well, Jeffrey was brilliant. He was clever.
Yeah,
So I don't
yeah.
know. Can't they just tell if that was handwriting or not?
Well, allegedly, there's been handwriting analysis. That's been going on for years, and I haven't
Oh
seen
my
the
goodness.
results. It definitely looks like the handwriting on the envelope, but look, there's going to be a lot more things that come out. I guess they thought the first batch, if they put Bill Clinton in a hot tub with Ghislaine Maxwell and a girl, that's all we talk about. And you wouldn't notice the Trump stuff that came out today, like how many times he was on the airplane, right? That came up in the Maxwell investigation for the prosecution because the U.S. attorney was like, "Oh, we got a problem. The president seems to be on this plane a lot more times, and we're trying to use this evidence to convict Ghislaine Maxwell. What do we do?" So I'm so glad we're here towards the holidays. We got some big announcements that we're experienced instructors, modern facilities, India and Korea. This is a real photo of Donald Trump. There he is, all alone on Christmas, President of the United States, and no one wants to talk with him as he rots away, as he physically and cognitively deteriorates before our eyes. And then he goes on his social media and starts ranting and raving about his cover up of the Epstein files. I'll tell you what he said in just a moment. A reminder, make sure you hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed. Double check and hit subscribe. Let me show you a quick video of me just kind of sitting there and nobody wanted to talk about him. His stench is likely just disgusting. Both his real stench and the stench of his evilness right there. But let me just show you what it looked like. This is a real video from Christmas at Mar-a-Lago where nobody wants to talk to him. Like Melania is not looking at him. Whoever this other guy is not looking at him. It's weird stuff. And he just sees a camera focused on him and he just starts waving. It's so odd. Here, play this clip. For our audio listeners, go and watch the YouTube channel where I just show this really crazy stuff. But I'll update the video and I'll read for you stuff that's far crazier. This is Donald Trump's post. This is what he did as he was withering away. She was deteriorating away at that Christmas event. And this is what's known as consciousness of guilt. Consciousness of guilt. This is a real post from the President of the United States. So it pains me to say that. This is a real post from Donald Trump from Christmas. Merry Christmas to all, including the many sleazebags who loved Jeffrey Epstein, gave him bundles of money, went to his island, attended his parties, and thought he was the greatest guy on earth, only to, quote, drop him like a dog when things got too hot, falsely claimed they had nothing to do with him, didn't know him, said he was a disgusting person, and then blame, of course, President Donald J. Trump, who was actually the only one who did drop Epstein, and all he wanted became fashionable to do so. He said he was a great guy. He likes women on the younger side was the word that you used. He called them one of his good friends, more like best friends with the guy. Are you talking about yourself on there? He goes on to say, when their names get brought out in the ongoing radical left witch hunt, plus one low-life Republican Massey, and it is revealed that they are Democrats all, there will be a lot of explaining to do, much like there was when it was made public that the Russia hoax
was a fictitious story and a total scam and had nothing to do with Trump. You have the Russians over in Miami this week. You have Kirill Dmitriev meeting with your envoy Witkoff. You talk about conquering Greenland. You're talking with Russia about forcing Ukraine to give up its eastern territory and surrender to Russia. It's being reported that you and Putin have been talking about joint ownership over the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. You were in Alaska with Putin where you rolled out a red carpet and you made our soldiers get down on their knees for Putin. You made the American military bend the knee for Putin to roll out the red carpet. So I guess if you're saying that Russia is a hoax, when we saw all of that I just mentioned before our eyes, by the way, I can go back to when you said Russia, if you're listening, hack the emails or find the emails or whatever he said. So if that's your standard for a hoax, and you're saying Epstein is a hoax, seems to be saying that there's some real big issues there for you, Donald. But I'll let you deal with that yourself, Donald, because we the people are going to expose what the hell you're doing. It goes on to say, the failing New York Times, among many others, was forced to apologize for their bad and faulty election reporting. I think they won the Pulitzer for it. Maybe you sued them for it, and they beat you in the lawsuit, even to the point of losing many subscribers due to their highly inaccurate fake coverage. Now the same losers are at it again, only this time so many of their friends, mostly innocent, will be badly hurt and reputationally tarnished. But sadly, that's the way it is in the world of corrupt Democrat politics. Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas, President Donald J. Trump. Can you just ever imagine the President of the United States on Christmas saying, enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas? And by the way, then to go into the content of Donald Trump is covering up for a pedo ring and child sex trafficking ring. As I've said before and I'll repeat it again, Donald Trump and those who he surrounds himself with are evil. This is an evil regime of evil, bad people, of predators, of bad guys and bad gals who just want to hurt you. That's who they are. You just have to realize they're demonic. They're demons. They're evil. They're evil, evil people who want to hurt you. That's it. That's who they are. Hate to have to say that, but sometimes the easiest explanation is the right one. Who else behaves like that? That's why I'm giving you my opinion. By the way, I'm giving you my First Amendment opinion, protected speech here in this video, so I'll be clear about that. But that's my opinion. Thomas Massey, who Donald Trump mentions in that post, the Republican who did the discharge petition with Ro Khanna, he goes, Merry Christmas to you too, Mr. President. So I teamed up with the radical left Democrats to expose the Democrats? Oh, this 4D chess sure is fun, Donald, he writes. By the way, just some other people respond, like Emmett Mehta goes, so when bombing Nigeria doesn't change the subject, might as well try whatever the hell this is supposed to be. Congresswoman Ansari writes, the walls are closing in on Donald Trump and his corrupt criminal regime, and he's absolutely losing his mind. Merry Christmas, George Conway. And now I guess running for Congress, he goes, why is Donald Trump calling himself a sleazebag? This other account goes, oh my God, I thought this had to be fake, but it isn't. I don't even know what to say besides that this man is so completely, desperately insane and freaked out beyond anything that has ever scared him before. To do this on Christmas is 100 times crazier. Holy moly, this other account writes. Once again stating the obvious, but this kind of blather from the President of the United States will never not be shocking. It's an embarrassment on the grandest scale. The 2024 electorate had one job and they failed so miserably. Do better next time. Best of all in 2026 right there. Just want to point out Jason Leopold, who's been incredible with the FOIA request. Josh Gerstein is a great court reporter as well. He said the following. Leopold goes, another reminder that the FBI tasked 934 agents and other personnel to review and redact Epstein files between March and May and prepare the docs for public release. FBI paid $851,000 to an overtime premium pay for just 1 week's worth of work.
Or you can create your own website by saying, this is what
I just couldn't imagine ever being so fucking fake that like.
back in March. So what were they doing then?
Yo, yo, uh, oh man, you know, I just could never imagine. I could never just imagine being so fake that you know, being so fake that uh, you're going around pretending that people love you, like when you went to the Super Bowl, there's like 200 fans right in front of him, and then like 58,000 people booing him and giving him the finger. And then he goes backstage where there's like one kid who really wants an autograph from the president. And so you like live in such a small bubble. You like there's one kid who likes you, and try to block out the 58,000 people who hate you, and you're getting the finger flopped at you, and but you're still trying to pretend like you're so fake and plastic, like the fake titties and fake lips, and like fake adulation, that you're so pathetic that your whole life is plastic. You know, yeah, like I'm lonely and I'm poor. I don't have a lot of stuff, but at least I'm real. I'm not plastic and fake and phony. I don't put on a pound of makeup every day and pretend. You know, it's really sad. I just couldn't imagine. You know, I always talk about plastic fake people, but this is like the penultimate. And you see Trump sitting there alone at the table. It's sad, man.
Or records, waste, fraud, and abuse. What were we spending all this overtime money on? As Josh Gerstein writes, the FBI was supposed to deliver all the Epstein files to Pam Bondi's desk by 8 a.m. on February 28, 2025. That's almost 10 months ago. This seems like something that the Justice Department Inspector General would need to dig into. You think they're going to really do that? You can't trust this regime with anything. This is something that we, the people, need to expose and make sure that others know what the hell is happening. As I mentioned, Donald Trump did a military strike inside of Nigeria yesterday, and that was one of the comments. Okay, so you're threatening Greenland, and you're threatening Venezuela, and you just bombed inside Nigeria, and the week before you bombed inside Syria. And Trump saying he's bombing ISIS? But didn't Donald Trump say that he destroyed ISIS? Didn't he say that ISIS no longer exists? But now he's going after. Explain this one to me. The U.S. this year alone under Trump has launched lethal military strikes in Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Syria, Yemen, the Caribbean, and the Pacific. Donald Trump posted, and Pete Hegseth reposted. Tonight, at my direction as Commander-in-Chief, the United States launched a powerful and deadly strike against ISIS terrorist scum in northwest Nigeria who've been targeting and viciously killing primarily innocent Christians at levels not seen for many years and even centuries. I have previously warned these terrorists that if they did not stop the slaughtering of Christians, they would be held to pay. Now, I want to be very clear. The problem with this Trump regime is you don't know what they're saying is true at all. It is important that if there was ISIS cells or terrorists, and this is something Nigeria wanted and the U.S. had the capability,
we don't want terrorists around, especially if they're plotting attacks. But already we know that what Donald Trump is saying is misleading. The ISIS cells which exist, and the Boko Haram and these groups, these terrorist groups that exist in Nigeria, are not necessarily targeting Christians over Muslims. They're targeting the population there generally. And this has been looked into if it's specifically attacks like uniquely on Christians or across the board. And what the studies have shown is that, yes, maybe a little more Christians, but like these attacks are happening on the entire population right there. And then one of the things that Donald Trump is also doing is he's blaming the government for aiding and abetting it. And so there may be broader plans, and just like there's no reason to exaggerate or lie about the situation. That's where you can tell the truth and actually build support potentially if you're accurate. But when you lie about everything and then you use the word scum here and scum there and everyone's scum, this scum, that scum, sleazebags, it's hard to take anything of what you're saying seriously or know what's up, down, left, right. I'll just show you. I'll leave you with this. This is how Donald Trump treats his supporters. I subscribe to his emails so you don't have to. And here is what he sends to his supporters on Christmas.
The body scanner reveals the brutal truth about your body that your regular scale will never tell you. For weeks, my scale showed I wasn't losing weight despite...
Subject: I'm in your chimney. Merry Christmas. I sent you a special Christmas letter. So here's what it says. From Trump: I sent you a special Christmas letter, but my team says that it went to the wrong address. So I guess I'll stick to emails from here on out. Please consider this my way of saying thank you, Merry Christmas, and God bless you for standing with me when our country needs it most. Confirm your address. I would deeply appreciate it if you chipped in any amount. It can be small or very to protect the America we cherish. So then you click the thing and it brings you to a page that says, claim your gift from Trump. A gift? So you're looking at claim your gift from Trump. And when you claim your gift, $2,500, $1,500, and it says claim gift from Trump, $2,500, for example. So you think when you click it that he's gifting you $2,500, right? So you would probably click the highest one. What else does it mean? Claim gift from Trump, $2,500. You think he's gifting you. Why would you gift him if you're claiming a gift? So you click it and then it takes you to, well, then you click it and then it makes you give him $2,500. He doesn't give you a gift. He takes $2,500 from you. But it doesn't just end there. There's then another thing that you click, which you think you have to click automatically, basically. And it's really small font to even understand. So, and it's separated from this paragraph. So here's what this paragraph says, where you check this box as well. And someone who thinks they're already getting a gift of $2,500 might check this box. So here's what it says. Alert, Democrats are gaining serious momentum. Their relentless attacks fueled by millions of dollars in dark money are paying off. MAGA is on the brink of disaster, and it's time to sound the alarm. President Trump can't hold back the woke mob alone. Keep this box checked to support MAGA in this do or die battle. So if you're a Trump supporter, you think you're getting a gift for $2,500. You think you're clicking this box because you're supporting MAGA in a do or die battle. So you check that box. And then below that, in different font, it says donate an additional $2,500 automatically on December 31st. So what checking that box actually does is adds another $2,500 that you're giving to Donald Trump. So somebody on Christmas thinks they're getting a gift and they just gave Donald Trump $5,000. Do you see what they're doing in plain view? In my opinion, this is the scammiest stuff out there. It's the most screwed up way to treat people. $5,000 when he says claim the gift from Trump. He takes your $5K. That's crazy stuff. That's crazy stuff. But you go into his background, you're like, yeah, he's a felon. That's who he is. He's a convicted felon. He's a fraud. He bankrupts things. He's found civilly liable of sexual abuse. This is who he is. He's as I said, evil, demonic. Like really, they're bad. They do bad things. They're predators. They do bad things because they're bad people. It's just that simple. We have to talk about it in simple terms. Anyway, hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks for all of your support.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock
So Donald Trump spent his Christmas attacking Nigeria. This is the footage here you can see from Fox. They say, watch footage shows the U.S. conducting airstrikes in northwest Nigeria on Christmas night, targeting ISIS militants accused of killing Christians. They say accused. The operation was described as decisive. I don't know if we really know, to be honest, with a warning that further strikes would follow if the violence continues. It's probably more like we'll keep shooting as long as Trump keeps tweeting, and he's been tweeting up a storm today, which we'll get into. This is also what's going on. We're not really hiding it anymore. We're chasing the oil around Venezuela. The White House is from Newsmax. So the White House has ordered U.S. forces to focus on enforcing a quarantine of Venezuelan oil. They're really not hiding it. We're going after the oil. So we're attacking Nigeria. We're going after the oil for at least 2 months. At least what this says. Signaling Washington is prioritizing economic pressure over military action. Basically, we're pirates. I don't know what else to say. Isn't it obvious? There's Trump here if you want to see him. He's hanging out for Christmas. Where is this? Probably Mar-a-Lago. President Trump was spotted at Mar-a-Lago with First Lady Melania for Christmas Eve. He's in the ballroom, and one is coming to White House just like it. Oh, great. And that Eric Doherty guy, he's a propagandist person, so I guess he's celebrating that we're getting a ballroom. And if you wonder why your life doesn't get better, or you struggle with your health care, or struggle with paying food, right, paying for food at the grocery store, it's because of stuff like this. Why? Because we're spending all our resources attacking people, building ballrooms. It doesn't really benefit average Americans. And as I said in the last video, how many average people are just walking around?
This guy was in the middle of a deal between the CIA, Israeli intelligence, and the Iranians. There are no random Forrest Gump dudes who walk into the middle of an Iran-Contra deal between the CIA, the Israelis, and Iran. That's not a thing that happens. There's no question he's intelligence. None. Zero.
The New York Times, though, has stated that Jeffrey Epstein did not grow his power and wealth via ties to intelligence. Jank, just that's all you get. What's your 2 cents?
No, guys, this is an enormous story. So as Drop Site News put it, Jeffrey Epstein appears to be the Forrest Gump of all political scandals and intelligence agency maneuvers. But I'm sure it's all a giant coincidence. It's not. If you watch this story, you'll see Epstein definitely involved with intelligence. Which intelligence? You're going to find that out too.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to deny after all of this. So on Tuesday, the New York Times published a massive piece on Jeffrey Epstein. And in it, it argues abundant conspiracy theories hold that Epstein worked for spy services or ran a lucrative blackmail operation. But we found a more prosaic explanation for how he built a fortune. But thanks to new reporting from Drop Site News, we've learned about Epstein's actual connections to an American intelligence scandal, the Iran-Contra affair. So specifically, Epstein, he shared a penthouse with an Iran-Contra lawyer, and he worked for an Iran-Contra arms dealer, and he moved the Iran-Contra planes to Ohio for use by billionaire retail mogul Leslie Wexner. So this piece is incredibly detailed. It is so long, and we don't have time to go through all of it, but If you are so interested, I would really encourage a lot of you to go find the article and read it for yourselves. It is hefty. But for now, here are some of the major takeaways that we'll give you. We'll start with a man named Stanley Pottinger. In the early 1980s, under the CIA supervision, Pottinger advised an Iranian banker on shipping embargoed arms to Iran using fraudulent paperwork and overseas dummy companies in the very same period that Pottinger and Epstein worked together selling tax avoidance strategies from a penthouse by Central Park. So the CIA would later use the profits from that scheme to bankroll the Contras down in Nicaragua. And on one occasion, the CIA met with that Iranian banker in Pottinger's office. And again, this is all during the time that Pottinger and Epstein were renting a penthouse together. So that Iranian banker was later indicted, but a money launderer and weapons trafficker named Adnan Khashoggi became America's next conduit to Iran. In 1985, Khashoggi teamed up with the CIA and then Israeli Prime Minister Shimon Peres, who helped Israel sell its own weapons to Iran while the US promised to refill those weapon stores. At this time, future Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak was head of Israel's military intelligence directorate. So it says former Israeli intelligence officer Ari Ben-Menash wrote in his 1992 memoir that Ehud Barak feared Peres or the Americans would discover the slush fund bank accounts where the arms profits were hidden and take the money for themselves. Ben-Menash claimed that Barak arranged for media mogul Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's father, to launder the Iran weapons profits through his company's accounts. Epstein often made vague boasts about being a financial bounty hunter who tracked down hidden money. Well, in 1987, while Robert Maxwell was allegedly hiding money from arms deals, Epstein bragged to a journalist about finding money for Adnan Khashoggi in such detail, the journalist thought Epstein might be in the business of hiding as well as finding it.
I can't imagine what it would be like to have to suddenly leave my home, where to take my
So as the 80s went on, the Iran-Contra scheme fell apart. It blew up in the press. And as the years passed, Epstein was handed control of billionaire fashion mogul Leslie Wexner's finances. So eventually, Wexner's empire gobbled up Southern Air Transport, or SAT, which controlled the very same planes that the CIA used to send weapons to Iran. So with Epstein acting as Wexner's logistics man in Ohio, in 1996, SAT finished relocating its world headquarters to Columbus to deliver products from factories in Hong Kong and southern China directly to Wexner's network of limited brand stores. And on October 1st, 1998, SAT abruptly filed for bankruptcy exactly 1 week before the CIA Inspector General released its official findings on Contra cocaine trafficking allegations. Oh my God, that was so hefty. That's so much. And it really doesn't even scratch the surface of everything that was detailed in that article. Again, you should read both. Read the New York Times piece and then read what DropSite revealed, all within this 1 week. I think I looked at it, Jank, in the New York Times piece, they only mention Israel 3 times. And it's just like, oh, Epstein was in Israel visiting these people and they weren't impressed with him. So it's really crazy. And the New York Times piece, the way that they try to frame it is that, oh, there's all these conspiracy theories around Epstein and like, does he work for Mossad? Like, was he a Mossad agent? Was he working with the CIA? All these things are very conspiratorial, according to the New York Times, which actually a viewer just pointed out, they might have some, it's really not saying much to say, but they might have some compromise. There might be compromise a little bit there. But with the New York Times piece, it was very much they were attempting to take a pragmatic approach. Like, you know what? It doesn't have to be so conspiratorial. Oftentimes, the simpler explanation is the right one. It has nothing to do with intelligence. This is all about, he was just really good at networking. But who was he networking with? And why was he involved? He said he was like Forrest Gump. He really does just pop up everywhere. And the idea that he's popping up now in relation to Iran-Contra is unbelievable. This is a big story.
Yeah, no. You only read the New York Times piece if you want to see how mainstream media covers up for the government, intelligence agencies, etc. Basically, it's a piece saying nothing to see here. Perfectly normal how he got all of his connections and money. Nonsense. Drop site news doing real journalism shows you, no, this guy was in the middle of a deal between the CIA, Israeli intelligence, and the Iranians. There are no random Forrest Gump dudes who walk into the middle of an Iran-Contra deal between the CIA, the Israelis, and Iran. That's not a thing that happens. You'd have to be a borderline lunatic to think that that happens. He's arranging where the illegal planes go. Epstein is. He's arranging meetings between Israeli intelligence and US, etc. There's no question he's intelligence. None, zero. And so at this point, the New York Times and all the other media that are, they see the drop site news stories. Like if they could disprove them, do you know how badly they want to disprove them? Because drop site news is humiliating them by being real journalists, while the New York Times is like, it's Trump, it's Bill Clinton, nothing to look at here. Don't look at Israel, don't look at the CIA. No, we're gonna look at him, because what the hell's he doing in the middle of that deal? Guys, it's even worse than that in a sense. You know, you always had this sense of like there are powerful people that you don't see. I ran this clip from President John F. Kennedy a couple of weeks before he was assassinated, talking about groups of secret people that conspire against the government, against all of us, etc. It's a haunting speech by JFK, assassinated a couple of weeks later. And so Adnan Khashoggi is the uncle of Jamal Khashoggi, the Washington Post columnist who was murdered by the Saudis. Okay, Hashemi is some guy who helped arrange the Iran part of the Iran-Contra controversy. He winds up being injected with something and dying of leukemia 2 days later. People keep popping up dead all over these stories, okay? So are there a group of people doing illicit deals like this? Well, of course there are. Iran-Contra, that was an illicit deal. We were not supposed to fund the Contras, and we certainly weren't supposed to sell weapons to a government we were calling terrorists at the time. Reagan was saying, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Meanwhile, CIA and Jeffrey Epstein and the Israelis are helping Iran get those weapons. And then, of course, many years later, Israel then turns around and says, can you believe Iran has weapons? We have to attack them. So the only thing I couldn't see definitively out of this story is Epstein Mossad or CIA or both? I don't know, but it's definitely one of them, if not both of them. So anyone claiming he's not intelligence, honestly, most of them probably have not read the drop site all stories. If you haven't and you just don't know, no problem, right? But if you read that and you still claim that Epstein wasn't involved in intelligence, you're lying. And then I have to wonder why you're lying, because that's a completely irrational and indefensible conclusion that you would come to after seeing Epstein in the middle of all of these deals. By the way, almost every single, I say almost because I'm not positive, but it's not almost in the ones that I've seen. Every single story that I've seen him do some sort of interacting with different countries, doing deals, setting up meetings, were all on behalf of Israel.
It's impressive how prolific he managed to be, from where he started to where he ended up to where he's organizing all kinds of meetings with world leaders, how he has targeted every celebrity, anyone literally of any kind of note and significance and relevance to any position of power, right? Whether that's in entertainment or business or in government, he was everywhere. And for the New York Times to publish that piece, and like they said it like it was this big bombshell reporting. They spent so much time and money on it. They had their best reporters on it. They dug through everything. And then that's what they ended up publishing. It's really kind of appalling. And then for Dropsite to come out immediately and be like, how'd you miss all this? You know, like obviously they were leaving out a lot of things in this bombshell piece that they wanted to deliver to the American people. It's really unbelievable. And all of this is happening the same week that we're supposed to get the Epstein files. This feels much, much, much more significant, much bigger than anything that we got from our government, because all we got was a few pictures of Michael Jackson and Bill Clinton that I would have rather not seen, you know?
Yeah.
If that's what they had to give us, you know, I would have just said, no, thank you. That would have been better.
Last two things here. One, we'll put the link in the description box for the drop site news story so you can read it yourself. And two, one of our members just wrote in on tyt.com, put that away and wrote in, I predict Maxwell will be taking a ride on Adelson jet very soon. So why? Because Robert Maxwell is involved in these stories. Robert Maxwell is Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, and Robert Maxwell is the most legendary Mossad spy of all time. He's the one that stole our nuclear secrets. By the way, I mean, I'm never gonna stop saying this because I find it to be the most remarkable thing I've ever heard. He stole our nuclear secrets and we decided not to arrest him because it would be an international incident that would embarrass the Israelis. Yeah, if you steal our nuclear secrets, embarrass is the least you should be. So our government protecting Israel at every turn, in the most outrageous ways, whether they're doing a deal with us, Iran-Contra, now that I get why they're protecting, CIA protects them because they were involved in that complicit plan, in that illicit plan. But by the way, that plan was illegal, and the people who did it at the CIA should have been arrested, let alone the Israelis and the Iranians, okay? But also in deals that, in situations where it massively hurts us. I'm trying to prevent people from getting nukes is one of the most important things that we do, because the more countries that have nukes, the more unstable the world becomes, and the greater the danger for all of us. Israel steals that from us, and we're like, thank you, sir, may we have another. And we've given them over $300 billion for no reason at all. All they ever do is spy and steal, and it looks like either Mossad or CIA or both unleashed this plague of Jeffrey Epstein upon us. And they did it knowing that they were going to molest and rape underage American girls here for their intelligence benefit. Nah, our government doesn't represent us at all. We need somebody to represent us desperately to get our government back.
And just one quick thing before we break. Yeah, Trump just gave that insane address to the American people on Wednesday where he yelled at us for 20 minutes. It was very bizarre. But in that speech, he said, you know, look at all these things that I've done for Israel. And he said, look, I had to write it down. I had to take notes on it because I've done so much for Israel. Read the room. No, the American people on both sides of the aisle wildly oppose American involvement in Israel. At this point, though, like, how do we even detangle ourselves from them? The US and Israel, we're the same. We're their arm. We're their muscle. They're the little guy. We're the big guy with the muscles. They're the, you know, it's a whole thing. And Trump and the Republicans are still pushing this narrative that we need to support Israel and look at all these things. He's the America First president. I think the people who are actively watching these shows want to know about what's actually going on, and they don't realize that they're just not getting the whole story. So this is a moment for journalism.
An Israeli military intelligence officer happened to stay at Jeffrey Epstein's Manhattan apartment on at least 3 separate occasions, and that's according to a new report from Dropsite News. Now, Epstein may have even wired money to him, once again raising questions about Epstein's alleged ties to Israeli intelligence networks. Alleged. Now, Dropsite compiled some of the evidence for this story from former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak's hacked emails. So we have that. Super interesting. In addition to Epstein's personal schedules, which were in fact released by the House Oversight Committee just last month. Now, the intelligence officer that we're referring to here, that was reported by the Dropsite News story, is a man by the name of Yoni Koren. Yoni Koren, Israeli military intelligence officer who stayed at Epstein's Manhattan apartment on at least 3 separate occasions. And here's what we know about him. He started his career in the research division of the IDF's military intelligence.
There is one question that is maybe the most consequential in American politics for the foreseeable future. That question is what happens to the Republican Party after Donald Trump. Second to that, a very close second, is who's the Democratic nominee in 2026, right? What does the Democratic Party choose as a direction for the next presidential race? But on the first question of what happens to the Republican Party after Trump, we have some fascinating new information. The succession plan that Trump and the people around him wanted has been revealed to the Daily Mail. It is even more dynastic and creepy and cult-like than you would expect. According to this report, MAGA power brokers mapped out a very long-term succession plan to try to keep Trumpism in control of the Republican Party for decades. We are talking more than 30 years of total reign. And here's how it was supposed to work. First phase is in 2028, J.D. Vance runs for president. Who was supposed to be his vice president? Charlie Kirk, the now deceased Charlie Kirk. After 8 years of a Vance presidency, the plan was for Charlie Kirk to become president himself with Donald Trump Jr. as his vice president. That is coming directly from Turning Point USA board member Mike Miller, longtime Trump ally, and described the plan in an interview. In his words, it was supposed to be JD and Charlie for 8 years after Trump, and then Charlie, and then after that, probably Donald Trump Jr. This was not about voters deciding anything organically or about Republican insiders or Republican voters, better said, deciding on the direction of the party. This was an internal grooming pipeline, a hand-picked MAGA sort of royal line of sorts, more akin to the British royal family than American democracy. And the reporting makes it really clear that this is not a new plan. Shortly after Charlie Kirk was introduced to the Trump family, Trump Jr. praised Kirk and said he's brilliant and this is someone who could be president. J.D. Vance has since confirmed that Charlie Kirk played a major role in introducing him to Donald Trump and helping him rise politically and ultimately in J.D. Vance becoming vice president of the United States. And Vance even gives credit to Charlie Kirk, not just with winning the 2024 election, but staffing the entire government. So that is not campaigning for anything. That is ideological capture. Now, obviously, Charlie Kirk is dead. So the plan as written can't be carried out anymore. But the takeaway is that the thinking was there, the mindset is there, and they are not just going to abandon all of this because Charlie Kirk is no longer alive. Trumpism is not supposed to end with Trump. We now know that. We've figured it out. It was designed to outlive Trump for a long time, to be sort of inherited like you would your parents' estate and be passed down through series of loyalists and family members and ideological enforcers. And if you look at history, this is how a political movement turns into an authoritarian political dynasty. It's not because they win debates and people really love their policy. It's because insiders are deciding who gets power next. The real takeaway here is the fact that there was a plan. Like, okay, Charlie Kirk was in it. Charlie Kirk was killed. He can't be part of the plan anymore. The fact that there was a multi-decade plan is the takeaway. Since Charlie Kirk was killed, the lineup would have to be different. But they are thinking of some version of this. And the speculation about Don Jr. at some point in the future has been floated around before. If anything, my expectation is that the death of Charlie Kirk probably accelerates the scramble. Without him, there's this vacuum at the top. The influencer to power pipeline now needs to be tweaked. And that is not going to lead to a more moderate Republican Party if this line of succession were to succeed. Now, what hasn't changed is that J.D. Vance is very obviously positioned as the next standard bearer. And I'm of two minds on this. On the one hand, I acknowledge and I am aware that never does the natural nominee 3 years out become the nominee. It just doesn't happen. It's always somebody else. It's someone who comes up and is noticed later. The difference is that this time they're actually planning ahead in a more proactive and specific way. So maybe that is going to be the next generation, and they're just going to have to figure out who fills the Charlie Kirk slot. Is it a different right-wing influencer? Is it a media personality? Is it some other Trump family member that steps forward sooner? What we know here is that Trump world isn't thinking about this in terms of winning the hearts and minds of voters and the will of the people. They were thinking about it as, how can we decide who gets to have the power? Now, think about the timeline. Vance, 2028, Vance, 2032. Charlie Kirk, 2036, Charlie Kirk, 2040. Don Jr., 2044, Don Jr., 2048. That would mean that from 2016 onwards, in some form, with a 4-year break there for Joe Biden, or from 2024 on in consecutive fashion, they have an idea of continuing this for 30 years. Think about other dynasties that operate this way. The Kim family in North Korea. They didn't start with forever rule on day one. The Castros in Cuba. There are other examples. The early phase is about consolidating power around a dominant figure and conferring enough power to the dominant figure that they then can decide who succeeds them. And then the final phase is normalization. You just got to get people used to the idea that this is how leadership works now. And that's what's so striking about it. It is really not about winning the next election by convincing people that your ideas are better. It's, can we lock in a lineage here? And look at the ages. I mean, Don Jr. would be 71 by the time he finishes this hypothetical second term in this imaginary plan. That is not a youthful movement breaking norms anymore. That is a strategy of long-term entrenchment designed to outlast Trump himself by a lot and to keep the family name in power. So when people say Trump will be gone eventually, this is the answer that Trump world has in mind. It is terrifying. It is disgusting. It is authoritarian. But you know what? We have power here. We have influence, and it is up to us to make damn sure that it does not happen. Appreciate you watching. Stick around for this next video, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you actually see our uploads. You can also catch the full podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
This is how to tell if your Parmesan is fake.
Parmesan.
A normal person on Christmas would be spending time with friends, family, throwing on the Muppet Christmas Carol, a little bit of eggnog, a little bit of kicking back. The President of the United States is incriminating himself by tweeting about Jeffrey Epstein as he clearly loses his mind, I guess, in Mar-a-Lago. That is what Donald Trump is doing right now. He's put up about 200 posts on Truth Social today, which shows you everything you really need to know about his non-relationship with Melania and anyone else at Mar-a-Lago. But the worst was the one he made about Epstein that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. And it's a nice little Christmas gift. But before we get into Trump, I want to start with all the context, which is the latest incriminating report on Epstein that clearly has Trump making this specific post, and it comes to us from Lawrence O'Donnell right here.
We don't yet know how much of the redacting of the Epstein files involves redacting the word Trump. But we do know that the completely corrupted Trump Justice Department is capable of continuing to try to cover up whatever they believe they need to cover up for Donald Trump in the Epstein files. The Trump Justice Department is and will remain completely corrupted. They therefore have no credibility at all in anything that they say about the Epstein files. And so when Todd Blanche tells you that something is fake in the Epstein files, like a handwritten letter from Jeffrey Epstein to another pedophile in prison, Todd Blanche should not be able to convince.
Well, Erica Kirk, she literally accidentally said it. She accidentally said it. Lindsey Graham had to respond to it, and the right is up in arms about it. We're going to talk all about it, and I want you to keep in mind, and I'm going to read you the definition of Freudian slip. What is a Freudian slip? Is when you make an unintentional error regarded as revealing subconscious feelings. So you say something or do something that reveals something that you might know to be true about yourself, but you don't really want other people to know. let's keep that in mind as we go through this. Let's keep that in mind as we go through the rest of the story. And before we get to that, I just want to really quickly say that as I've gotten more popular, thanks to you on this platform, I've gotten more and more threats on the internet. People call me, a gay slur, a loser. Here's a gay slur. Someone says you have Trump's dick in your mouth. I don't think I do. This guy, Right Angle News Network, who has 300,000 followers, said that there are some people in the world that need the absolute fucking shit beaten out of them, and you are one of them. And that's not only what I'm getting. I'm also getting on the left people saying I'm anti-Semitic, which is crazy. I never even talk about Israel or Gaza here, or Netanyahu or his government. For the record, I think what Netanyahu and Israel have done to the people of Gaza and Palestinians is inhumane, a war crime, and in my opinion, is ethnic cleansing. So there's that. Secondly, people are also calling me anti-black, misogynistic. What these people are doing is they're just trying to shut me up. They would prefer that I stop making noise, I stop pointing out things that I know to be true, and they want me to go away. They're trying to do all the tools in the playbook. Slander someone, threaten them with violence, and it's not going to work. I'm not going to shut up. We'll talk about those things later. They're not that important, but I want you to know. I stand firmly in what I believe, and I stand proudly by what I've done and what I say. And if you're with me, please hit like on the video and hit subscribe, because we're not shutting up. We're not shutting up. Someone said to me, Keith, why don't you just drink a big glass of shut the fuck up? Well, unfortunately, I'm all allowed to shut the fuck up. All I've got left is speak the fuck up. And we're going to keep speaking the fuck up until they either put me in jail or until we win. Okay? Now, let's go through this, because Erica Kirk also is not, she's not shutting up either. And if you don't know, that Turning Point USA, it's very strange conventions happening. And of course, here is how she walked out to this really sad music. No one's ever been a happier widow than she is. Now, what someone did was they actually added WWE music. Oh no, they said this is the WWE, and they said this is Erica Kirk walking out to mourn. That will probably get copyright stricken, but maybe you'll see it within the first hour. And someone else added WWE music to Erica Kirk's walkout, which honestly feels a little more fitting. Perfect. Now, Erica Kirk actually did make some news, and she said this about J.D. Vance on the first day of the convention.
For both 2026 and 2028, we're investing in states and not just in races. So what I mean by that is we are building the Red Wall, Arizona, Nevada, New Hampshire. That's going to be very important to us. We're going to ensure that President Trump has Congress for all 4 years. We are going to get my husband's friend, J.D. Vance, elected for 48 in the most resounding way possible.
Yeah, so wouldn't you know it? Erica Kirk endorsed J.D. Vance for President of the United States for 2028. I have Lindsey Graham's response to this. He was just asked about it today. Before we get to that, someone also said that this is the 6 stage of grief. If you don't know, it's actually merchandise. All right, Erica Kirk also made a very devastating, as I said, Freudian slip where this is an all-timer, everyone. This is an all-timer. Are you ready?
Despite the devastating loss of Charlie Kirk, my incredible husband at UVU, Caleb has persisted with the same gift. Grit. It has been a long day. Trust me, you're not a grifter, honey.
Freudian slip. So Caleb is going along the same grift as her husband and Erica Kirk. Can we watch it one more time?
Caleb has persisted with the same gift. Grit. It has been a long day.
You know, sometimes you can't even write these things. You can't even write them. Now, Tim Dillon, who I don't know if he's a far right, but he's certainly someone who is right-leaning podcaster, had this to say.
To go out through a stream of fireworks and sparklers and stand there in a glittering pantsuit and talk about electing J.D. Vance 3 months after your husband was killed, many people feel that there is something off about that. And we're starting to see that political people are the exact same thing as the Hollywood elites that they all love to dunk on.
It is very, very, very strange that she would do that this early too. Like we're not even supposed to be talking about the presidential until after the midterms. So it's just very weird. I'm interested to know what you think is going on with Erica Kirk and JD Vance. Now, I want to... Oh, yeah. Someone said this. Me when my husband is shot in the face mid-racist argument. Glitter and surrounded by sparklers. Okay, now, Lindsey Graham was asked about this endorsement. Here's what he had to say.
Erica Kirk, the widow of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated in September, this week endorsed Vice President J.D. Vance for president in 2028. What do you make of that? Would you endorse Vice President J.D. Vance for president at this point?
I'm worried about tomorrow, but that's a big day for J.D. Yeah, I like J.D. Vance. That's a big get for him in terms of the future. But our fate will be determined how well we do keeping America safe and prosperous between now and 26. President Trump is on the verge of change.
Blah, blah, blah. All right, so he really didn't say anything at all. But I got to say, it's a very interesting thing that has happened. That is very interesting. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's very, 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 very interesting. Well, Erica Kirk's not shutting up. I'm not going to shut up. I hope you don't stop speaking up. Leave your comments below. I do read them, for better or for worse. I do read them. And I'll see you soon. Bye.
In case you were wondering where Trump's mind was this Christmas, it's apparently not on his friends or his family or the holiday that Republicans have spent the last 2 decades hyperventilating that the left was trying to destroy. Nope. Trump's focus is on Jeffrey Epstein, his quote-unquote closest friend for a decade. Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "Merry Christmas to all, including the many sleazebags who loved Jeffrey Epstein, gave him bundles of money, went to his island, attended his parties, and thought he was the greatest guy on earth, only to drop him like a dog when things got too hot, falsely claim that they had nothing to do with him, didn't know him, said he was a disgusting person, and then blame, of course, President Donald J. Trump, who was actually the only one who did drop Epstein, and long before it became fashionable to do so. When their names get brought out in the ongoing radical left witch hunt, plus one lowlife Republican Massey, and it is revealed that they are Democrats all, there will be a lot of explaining to do, much like there was when it was made public that the Russia hoax was a fictitious story, a total scam, and had nothing to do with Trump. The failing New York Times, among many others, was forced to apologize for their bad and faulty election reporting, even to the point of losing many subscribers due to their highly inaccurate fake coverage. Now the same losers are at it again, only this time so many of their friends, mostly innocent, will be badly hurt and reputationally tarnished. But sadly, that's the way it is in the world of corrupt Democrat politics. Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas, President Donald J. Trump. First of all, Gotta love a president of the United States threatening everyone on Christmas night by saying, enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas. Again, this is the guy leading the party that has spent the last 2 decades wailing that the left was waging a war on Christmas. Can you imagine if Obama's Christmas night message was a thinly veiled threat about this being our last Merry Christmas? Do you think Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity would have ever stopped talking about it? Or would they have gotten mileage off that thing for the next 20 years? Take all the time you need with that one. But as for the Epstein meltdown, first of all, quote, the many sleazebags who love Jeffrey Epstein, yeah, I wonder who those people could be. Truly one of life's great mysteries. When we find out who they are, I sure do hope they get shamed from now until the ends of the earth. Because I gotta say, those people, again, whoever they are, deserve to rot in hell. People like, by the way, this. So yeah, if anybody can identify this guy chumming it up with Jeffrey Epstein, they should probably let Donald Trump know, because it sounds like that's exactly who Trump was talking about in his message. Second, Trump tries to pretend that he dropped Epstein. According to PBS, Social Security records submitted to the court during Virginia Giuffre's defamation case against Maxwell show that Giuffre was a locker room spa attendant at Mar-a-Lago in summer 2000, 2 years before Trump called Epstein a terrific guy. In other words, Jeffrey Epstein trafficked Virginia Giuffre in 2000. 2 years after Epstein trafficked a girl from his spa, Trump then called Epstein, quote, a terrific guy to New York Magazine. That was in 2002. So Trump's claim that he dropped Epstein might carry just a tad bit more weight if he wasn't still fawning over the guy, even after it was clear that he was poaching minors who he then trafficked from Trump's own spa. Trump goes on to claim that the Democrats are engaged in a witch hunt, which will ultimately prove that only Democrats were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. So, if it's only Democrats who are involved with Epstein, why are the Democrats going to expose them? Can anybody explain how that makes sense? And that's a point, by the way, that even Thomas Massie himself made publicly. Quote, Merry Christmas to you too, Mr. President. So I've teamed up with radical left Democrats to expose Democrats. This 4D chess is fun. Yeah, I guess logic isn't exactly in abundant supply these days in Trump world. I gotta ask too, if this is all just a big hoax, then why did Donald Trump's own administration run on the very issue of releasing the Epstein files? I'm old enough to remember all these people saying stuff like this.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
You wondering why we're not hearing more about this Epstein case? I mean, the guy was only connected to just about every major player in the swamp internationally, and yet you don't hear much about it. And what the hell are they hiding with Jeffrey Epstein?
Even Trump himself exploited the issue.
Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool.
But now, suddenly that it's become clear that he himself is implicated in the files, it's a hoax? If Trump was so certain that it was all fake, then why surround yourself with people who made this their principal issue? Why tap people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino to lead the FBI when they predicated their entire brands on exposing Epstein's co-conspirators? Why tap J.D. Vance as the vice president after he too demanded the files be released? Why allow Pam Bondi to call a bunch of right-wing influencers to the White House to wave around Epstein binders? If all of the Epstein stuff was a Democrat hoax like Russia, 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 then why allow all of that to happen? Unless, of course, you were perfectly content to exploit the issue for votes with zero intention of actually delivering on your promises. But that doesn't sound like something the Donald Trump we all know would do. Not the guy who promised lower costs and lower inflation and cheaper rent and cheaper groceries and free IVF and protected healthcare and earned benefits and ending the Russia-Ukraine war on day one. That guy wouldn't possibly lie now, would he? Yeah. So Trump will engage in all these tirades, but all he's doing is betraying his guilty conscience. Not for nothing, but people who have no connection to Jeffrey Epstein do not spend all of Christmas Day freaking out about their association with Jeffrey Epstein. The fact that Trump did really does give the entire game away, and now the entire world knows it too. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.
Tonight, the Justice Department releasing its biggest batch yet of documents related to the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, including this fake Austrian passport with Epstein's photo and a false name. The new release also includes documents that mention President Trump. In one email, a federal prosecutor, citing flight logs, says Trump was a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993 and 1996, between New York and Florida on Epstein's jet. That he traveled with his then-wife Marla Maples, daughter Tiffany, and son Eric. And saying on another flight, the only 3 passengers are Epstein, Trump, and a 20-year-old whose name is redacted. The files also include this handwritten note, purportedly written by Epstein and sent to Dr. Larry Nassar, another notorious sex offender, including the quote, "Our president also shares our love of young nubile girls." But tonight, the Justice Department says the FBI concluded the letter is fake, saying the FBI determined the writing does not appear to match Jeffrey Epstein's. The letter was postmarked 3 days after Epstein's death and was sent from Northern Virginia when Epstein was jailed in New York, and that it did not include his inmate number, which is required for outgoing mail, calling it a reminder. Just because a document is released by the Department of Justice does not make the allegations or claims within the document factual. The president has said he broke off his relationship with Epstein decades ago, and President Trump has never been accused of any wrongdoing related to Epstein. Also revealed in the documents, in 2019, the FBI discussed interviewing 10 potential co-conspirators. Tonight, the top Senate Democrat wants more information on who they are and why they chose not to prosecute.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.
Build a website you love with Wix, where your words create your brand, your opportunity, your breakthrough. Feeling a vibe? Run with it. From can't look away to gotta have it. Make every detail yours. Bring out what's hot. Remove what's not. Crystallize it. Instantly set a tone that speaks in your voice to your audience. Keep moving. Your site grows with you. Add solutions that meet you where you are. and take you where you want to go. Smooth to make, easy to love.
In case you were wondering where Trump's mind was this Christmas, it's apparently not on his friends or his family or the holiday that Republicans have spent the last 2 decades hyperventilating that the left was trying to destroy. Nope. Trump's focus is on Jeffrey Epstein, his quote-unquote closest friend for a decade. Trump posted on Truth Social, quote, "Merry Christmas to all, including the many sleazebags who loved Jeffrey Epstein, gave him bundles of money, went to his island, attended his parties, and thought he was the greatest guy on earth, only to drop him like a dog when things got too hot, falsely claim that they had nothing to do with him, didn't know him, said he was a disgusting person, and then blame, of course, President Donald J. Trump, who was actually the only one who did drop Epstein, and long before it became fashionable to do so. When their names get brought out in the ongoing radical left witch hunt, plus one lowlife Republican Massey, and it is revealed that they are Democrats all, there will be a lot of explaining to do, much like there was when it was made public that the Russia hoax was a fictitious story, a total scam, and had nothing to do with Trump. The failing New York Times, among many others, was forced to apologize for their bad and faulty election reporting, even to the point of losing many subscribers due to their highly inaccurate, fake coverage. Now the same losers are at it again, only this time so many of their friends, mostly innocent, will be badly hurt and reputationally tarnished. But sadly, that's the way it is in the world of corrupt Democrat politics. Enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas, President Donald J. Trump. First of all, gotta love a president of the United States threatening everyone on Christmas night by saying, enjoy what may be your last Merry Christmas. Again, this is the guy leading the party that has spent the last 2 decades wailing that the left was waging a war on Christmas. Can you imagine if Obama's Christmas night message was a thinly veiled threat about this being our last Merry Christmas? Do you think Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity would have ever stopped talking about it? Or would they have gotten mileage off that thing for the next 20 years? Take all the time you need with that one. But as for the Epstein meltdown, first of all, quote, the many sleazebags who love Jeffrey Epstein, yeah, I wonder who those people could be. Truly one of life's great mysteries. When we find out who they are, I sure do hope they get shamed from now until the ends of the earth. Because I gotta say, those people, again, whoever they are, deserve to rot in hell. People like, by the way, this. So yeah, if anybody can identify this guy chumming it up with Jeffrey Epstein, they should probably let Donald Trump know, because it sounds like that's exactly who Trump was talking about in his message. Second, Trump tries to pretend that he dropped Epstein. According to PBS, Social Security records submitted to the court during Virginia Giuffre's defamation case against Maxwell show that Giuffre was a locker room spa attendant at Mar-a-Lago in summer 2000, 2 years before Trump called Epstein a terrific guy. In other words, Jeffrey Epstein trafficked Virginia Giuffre in 2000, 2 years after Epstein trafficked a girl from his spa. Trump then called Epstein, quote, a terrific guy to New York Magazine. That was in 2002. So Trump's claim that he dropped Epstein might carry just a tad bit more weight if he wasn't still fawning over the guy, even after it was clear that he was poaching minors who he then trafficked from Trump's own spa. Trump goes on to claim that the Democrats are engaged in a witch hunt, which will ultimately prove that only Democrats were involved with Jeffrey Epstein. So, if it's only Democrats who are involved with Epstein, why are the Democrats going to expose them? Can anybody explain how that makes sense? And that's a point, by the way, that even Thomas Massey himself made publicly. Quote, Merry Christmas to you too, Mr. President.
There is a email going around in this latest trove where Epstein talks about Trump basically not just lending his name from a branding exercise, as a way of making money, but also being a Trojan buyer of a lot of stuff for wealthy people who wanted to launder their purchases. I mean, it has occurred to me, again, this is all speculation on my part. You've done a lot more reporting and digging into these things, that when in that birthday card, when he referred to them as both enigmas, I get the sense that that was about money laundering at the end of the day. I mean, I feel like that would be, it feels like Epstein would find a thing that he shared with these different people and then become this mentor, like Larry Summers asking how to, prey on, somebody who works for him.
But a mentor would imply that the relationship isn't coercive. Setups throughout his whole house. So, I mean, Murtaza, feel free to weigh in here, but like he recorded, it seems like a lot of incriminating information about
But it's unclear. I mean, from the email, Murtaza, weigh in on this, but I'm like looking at his Larry Summers stuff, and that does not seem like Larry Summers is afraid of Epstein. It seems like Larry Summers is like, I'm a loser. Can you help me score with this, person who's working for me? I mean, it's nuts. It's like what I feel like a 12-year-old would say to some junior in high school, like, dude, how do I, like, it's like Fast Times at Ridgemont High when the guy's saying, put on that Led Zeppelin album, sort of. But Murtaza, weigh in on this.
Yeah, to Emma's point, it's this issue of the blackmail. It's interesting because I think there's very strong circumstantial evidence and I think it's very plausible that was the case. I haven't seen a smoking gun as yet that he was doing that per se. But one thing we reported on is that at his the apartments that he was administering in New York, the ones he's renting or have control over, there was an Israeli senior Israeli military intelligence agent living there for stretches of that time, weeks at a time between 2013 2015. So one can imagine what the reason for that is. But and another aspect is that Epstein did have ties to Russian oligarchs, and we've also reported on parts of this, and they were well known to do this kind of thing. The whole compromat idea was sort of in some way pioneered by them. And there are some other emails which suggest, imply that this was going on, but I haven't seen a smoking gun per se. It's very plausible to me. But that said, I also think that a lot of these people, they didn't need to be blackmailed because they were willing to do what Epstein wanted anyways, because Epstein was somebody who, they wanted to be close to him because he was someone who could make you a lot of money. He could make you a very wealthy person if you have connection to him. He was someone who was a gateway to a lot of fun, quote unquote. He could, open doors to parties and God knows what, social circles that are very elite and so forth. So I think that he probably used carrots and sticks, and I've seen a lot of carrots, but we haven't seen necessarily firm evidence that he was doing that. Although I think it's not by no means beyond the realm of possible at all. But yeah, he was somebody who was also very charismatic. Clearly, he had a magnetic sort of personality. Powerful people were dying to talk to him and work with him or have his attention and have his time and so forth. So, I don't know. That's a very, very important part of who he was and how he operated. And these emails, he was just chatting in a lot of them with powerful people. Like they were using him as a confidant or somebody who they wanted to, like Larry Summers is a great example. They wanted his help as an individual. So I don't know what the particular elite culture was where these things were being discussed or what role exactly he played socially in this way. But it wouldn't surprise me that a lot of people did what he wanted just because they wanted to, even if some of them were also being coerced.
I mean, we should be frank. I mean, some of our faves were involved. Chomsky has written about. There's what seems to be some type of reference letter and where Chomsky talks about the access to insight and individuals in areas where Chomsky was he wanted to, it sounds like Epstein made, maybe it was Ehud Barak, it could have been other Israeli officials, so that Chomsky could sort of formulate his opinions and get an idea of what's actually going on, providing that type of access to somebody who wouldn't necessarily be able to sort of you don't imagine Chomsky having the opportunity, once he becomes such a full-throated critic, to be able to have access and insight from behind whatever, curtain that he has criticized. And it's like Epstein shows up and I'm like, I've got, you want reds? I got reds. You want blues? I got blues. I got uppers. I got downers. I got I got whatever it is that you want. It's like a weird world where this guy has all the information that people seem to be seeking from him. Now, of course, I'm not reading the emails that are just banal, but it seems really sort of fascinating. I guess the origin story is like how it gives you a better sense of what this trajectory is, right?
Yeah, he made himself indispensable to so many people, seemingly. He was able to open doors for them and so forth. And, with Chomsky, it was fascinating because there are some emails between Chomsky, Epstein, and Ehud Barak in the separate disclosures, which, were not from the House Oversight Committee, were then Barak's emails. And it seemed like Epstein and Barak just, they saw Chomsky as like this brilliant curiosity. And they actually, there's one very interesting email. We might report this later on, but
well, save it, Aldi, and save the holiday spirit.
Release some more Epstein files. I haven't seen what they released yet. So literally, I'm discovering this as I'm talking to you guys. And you could just chill, right? And so
he was around. He was all over Palm Beach and other places. The head of Harvard was his best friend, Larry Summers. And Bill Clinton was.
You see, I view it as our obligation as independent news to call out regime media in all of its manifestations, both the obvious and more subtle manifestations. The obvious manifestations, CBS under Barry Weiss killing a critical 60-minute story exposing the Trump regime's deportations of Venezuelans to the El Salvador concentration camp, where human beings under the United States auspices were systematically tortured physically and sexually, and CBS aiding and abetting the regime in covering it up and killing a story. In more subtle means, the way coverage is presented at a national and local level by corporate means, by corporate media, sane washing the Trump regime's ICE and Border Patrol Gestapo tactics, where they go through towns and cities and peaceful areas and start bashing in windows, ripping people apart from their families, throwing people into cages under the pretext that they're out there looking for predators. They often never find the quote-unquote predator, but they find people around them and destroy and ruin their lives, and we never hear from some of these people again. Now, Midas Touch can't be everywhere all at once, so it's incumbent upon us to work with groups that I think are doing a great job in the independent media space, and we do our best to uplift these groups. And lately we've been partnering with an incredible independent media outlet called Status Quo, and they've done a brilliant expose with us exposing the horrific coverage by NBC, which is quasi or full state regime media type propaganda of the immigration raids taking place in Minnesota. Now, Status Quo has reporters all across the country, and they're embedded not on the front lines with the regime, but on the front lines with the people, with the migrants, with the citizens, with the people of the United States. And so they're on that side, while corporate news regime media is often with the regime, trying to get the regime perspective. So which perspective do we want? What's actually going on, the pain and suffering, the torture that's being inflicted on the people, to bring you the real news? Or do we want to show you what the sane washing propaganda regime wants to hear? No, that's why we partnered work with Status Quo. So I want to share this with you, because Status Quo, in this brilliant piece right here, they show that the NBC coverage is completely at odds with the real events of what ICE and Border Patrol were doing in Minnesota. You have JT Sostowski, you know JT, he kind of leads the coverage here, but he talks about the local reporter that they had, John Farina, on the ground in Minnesota. And we've been working with Status Quo. This report is incredible, how they break down the tactics, the means, the methods that's used by NBC as quasi-state regime or state regime to try to cover up, not just sane wash, but promote the regime's militarized propaganda, but we need to see through it. So I would just make this one request to you. Subscribe not just to our YouTube channel here on the Midas Touch and help us get to 6 million subscribers. That would be great, of course, but then go and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel for Status Quo. They've got a great Substack. They've got a great YouTube. We want to help build and uplift them because they're doing real great work, and their work's going to be even more important next year. So let's bring in JT Sostowski, and this is a report that is this is the type of investigative reporting and the type of reporting that, to me, we need to do more of here at the Midas Touch Network, and that's going to leave an impression on you forever. So let's bring in JT Sostowski.
I'm JT Sostowski for Status Quo. It's rare when we can draw direct parallels between the coverage that we are offering and the coverage that is being offered by a national outlet like NBC News, because often when we are on the ground, we are the only ones there covering that story. But we've been on the ground in Minneapolis for about a week now, covering the Trump administration's occupation of that city and the immigration crackdown that is currently happening there. And NBC News recently had a crew that embedded directly with ICE agents as they were out there covering or conducting, rather, some of these operations. And it was some of the exact same scenes that our intrepid cameraman, John Farina, was at. So we can draw direct comparisons between these two coverages. Let's show you. This is a story that ran on NBC Nightly News just a couple of days ago and featured their senior White House correspondent, Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, ICE agents in frigid Minneapolis as they surround this home looking for a suspect charged with criminal sexual conduct.
They're claiming there, that this is somebody who was being charged with criminal sexual conduct. Remember that, because it'll become relevant in just a moment. But I also want to point out the use of the word tonight. That can create a warped sense. I worked in TV news. I know what they're doing there. In TV news, we were always taught to write for a sense of immediacy. It's not we don't just say that this happened. You're saying right now or tonight or today. You're trying to create that sense of immediacy. But in this context, I think could also create the sense that what's happening on the ground in Minneapolis is a one-off or just a one-day thing, when in reality, this has now been happening on the ground in Minneapolis for going on 2 weeks now, this ramp up in the Trump administration's immigration crackdown there.
ICE says that they tried to stop an undocumented immigrant, but he ran back inside his house. They've now returned with a technical team and a warrant.
This is the first instance that we have of Gutierrez using the phrase ICE says, or the Department of Homeland Security says, et cetera, attributing information directly to the federal government, implying that journalists for NBC News have not directly verified this information for themselves. I know, again, because I worked in broadcast news, that's what you're taught to do. If you don't know it to be true, if you weren't there to get it firsthand or haven't confirmed it with multiple sources, then attribute the information. That's what he's doing here. So effectively, just advancing the administration's narrative. They say this person was inside this house, and they say that they have a warrant for this arrest.
Federal officers then going inside, making an arrest. Not their original target, but also undocumented, ICE said.
Yeah, there they go. Okay, so the NBC acknowledges that that person that ICE arrested after going inside of that home was not their original target. As his face blurred by NBC News, whereas the person who's being perp walked, that's what that is. It's called a perp walk. If you're not familiar with the term, it is a term from news where authorities will bring somebody out who they have either captured or charged or just want to make look guilty, they'll parade them out in front of TV cameras, in this case, the NBC News camera that was there filming, even though, as they admit here in the piece, this is not the person they were there to get. They are claiming that this is another undocumented person, but this person does not merit having their face blurred. The agent, who is ostensibly, someone working for the federal government, has signed up to be a civil public servant, does get their face blurred here, but that person in the middle does not get the same humane treatment, and also is now, just by association, being associated with the quote unquote criminal sexual conduct that was made reference to earlier in the story.
Federal officers then going inside, making an arrest. Not their original target, but also undocumented, ICE said.
And again, attributed to ICE says. Also undocumented, ICE says.
This is what we're sworn to do, is protect the country by removing illegal aliens.
The Department of Homeland Security says they've arrested undocumented immigrants with convictions including criminal sexual conduct with a minor, aggravated assault, and domestic violence.
If I'm doing public relations for the Trump administration, I am doing cartwheels after watching that part of the story, because not only do you get the ICE agents there directly in an interview in the car with NBC News as they're doing the ride along, not only do you get that interview, but you also get another attribution of just the Department of Homeland Security says it has caught people with all of these criminal histories. The Department of Homeland Security is abducting a lot of people right now. So it does not shock me to hear that a lot of these people who are being abducted, probably they do get some people who have criminal histories. But again, NBC News showing that they have not directly verified that information. I reached out to NBC News asking how much of this information that they were able to verify, in addition to a whole host of other questions about this story. I have not heard back. But just advancing the administration's narrative here about what is happening on the ground in Minneapolis and in their immigration raids across the country, pretty unquestioningly. The only couple questions that we see fielded in this interview are to that one agent in the car, and they don't seem to be particularly hard-hitting questions.
The operation comes after federal prosecutors earlier revealed they charged dozens of people in Minnesota's Somali community for allegedly stealing hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money, including from programs meant to give meals to low-income children.
That's called the Great Big Minnesota Scam.
President Trump escalating his rhetoric against Somalia overnight.
We always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime.
ICE insists the large Somali population here is not the specific target, but the community is furious.
The mistakes of a few individuals can never be used to generalize or stereotype an entire community.
If you're not really plugged into what's happening in Minneapolis, you'll be forgiven if after you watch that portion of the story, you're a little confused, because NBC News never comes right out and explains why they're talking about the Somali community in Minneapolis. And just to fill you in, there was a federal investigation that resulted in dozens of people who are of Somali descent being charged for defrauding some government programs. But it is a drop in the bucket when you compare it to the 75,000 plus members of the entire Minnesota Somali community. So we do hear in that clip there that that imam who pushed back against that painting with a broad brush, but that is the only voice you hear in this entire story. Line about what they want. Used it to make some racist comments about the Somali community. You heard some there just played in the NBC News piece. Again, just advancing, here's what the administration is saying, without really offering the pushback of anybody saying, pointing out, hey, this is just racism. This is just otherizing a community for this administration to be able to distract from the current state. Not part of that evil outgroup that they're trying to paint the Somali community.
Gaza's population is on the brink of famine. Every hour counts. Children are starving to death. Make a donation. Support these humanitarian organizations. This cannot wait. This is not a debate. This is our job.
To be.
While in Minnesota, we saw firsthand protests.
There's only one lawyer on planet Earth that had the opportunity to cross-examine Jeffrey Epstein. Was the only person that took that talking about the child sex trafficking and the involvement of Donald Trump in his personal life. It's all because of Spencer Coven. And he came on Midas Touch along with my partner, Ben Mysalis, for an exclusive interview. And here is that interview.
I want to hear from the lawyer who represented the first Epstein victim to come forward. I want to speak to the lawyer who has taken Jeffrey Epstein's deposition several times, who has filed motions for sanctions against Epstein, who sat directly across from Epstein, who studied the behavior of Epstein, who saw all of these documents. Rather than speculating or whatever, let's just get it firsthand from Spencer Coven of Gold Law. Spence, bring in Spencer right now. Spencer, you famously have deposed Epstein numerous times. All of your cases against Epstein have since resolved, or against the estate, have all since resolved. I want to remind people of one of the moments from one of those depositions, and then I want to talk about what happened with the survivors coming forward with their stories on Capitol Hill. I want to talk about what you're able to share from the litigation in terms of a roadmap from what might be out there. And then, of course, Donald Trump continued today to say that this is one massive hoax, and that he turned over all the documents that exist. He says the 33,000 documents are it. Nothing else is being turned over. But first, let me remind people of that depo that you did. Just a short clip of it. Let's play it.
Could you please give us your name? Jeffrey Epstein. Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis?
Form, vague, indefinite, and I'm going to give you the first warning, Mr. Coven, that these types of questions are not only argumentative, but directed in a manner to embarrass Mr. Epstein. If you continue with this type of question, I will adjourn the deposition immediately.
Sir, according to the police department's probable cause affidavit, one witness described your penis as oval-shaped and claimed when erect it was thick towards the bottom but was thin and small towards the head portion, and called it egg-shaped. Those are not my words, I apologize. But as Mr. Critton has stated, that this is
survivors coming forward with their stories on Capitol Hill. I want to talk about what you're able to share. Documents are it. Nothing else is being turned over. But first, let me remind people of that depo that you did. Just a short clip of it. Let's play it.
Could you please give us your name?
Jeffrey Epstein.
Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis?
Form, vague, indefinite, and I'm going to give you the first warning, Mr. Kubin, that these types of questions are not only argumentative,
oval-shaped